Hey everyone, and welcome to the second part of this three-piece podcast series with Henrik Venø from Acuity World. My name is Fred, and I'm your host on the True Intent podcast. And I'm so excited to bring you back into the studio, Henrik, because I was inspired by our last talk, because you really give a unique perspective on how to help people find their true intent, how to help people really be themselves. And it's immensely inspiring for me, and hopefully it can be for everybody out there listening as well. For those of you who might be tuning in now and haven't heard the first episode, maybe go and listen to it. But otherwise, I would present Henrik. He has more than 20 years of experience working with new NLP, coaching individuals, but also leaderships and sales professionals. And having attended NLP trainings with Henrik, I picked up on some of the tools and techniques that you're teaching. And to me, it seems like you've really succeeded in creating a system to implement a rather complex approach to leadership and making it simple and helping people achieve personal growth. And I'd like for us in this episode, for everybody listening, that we can try to simplify some of the complexity in actionable steps for the listeners to leave with a few ideas that they can go home and practice on their own. And in your book, Do What You Do Best, you mentioned having rediscovered yourself through NLP. Regaining the joy of learning that 13 years of formal education gradually had taken away from you. Can you tell us a bit about that experience and how that came to pass?
Yeah, I think it was basically a coincidence because, again, when I started out my own NLP learning journey, it was basically because I, at that time, was a sales and marketing manager. I wanted to improve my communication skills. So that was really the entry into it. But I realized, wow, this is deeper because, again, just focusing on how to do things is maybe not enough. Who you are is maybe the foundation for actually getting real skills and get skills at a level which is worth possessing.
Because maybe there is people out there who is aware or unaware about what happens when you go through our formal education system. Because for me, at least, I didn't feel like I fitted into that whole system. That doesn't mean that I don't want to learn. I actually love learning. But when I know why I'm learning what I try to learn and I'm inspired to use that in practice, then I'm actually learning more than I'm following a system where I don't get to think on my own. So for people sitting out there, how do you believe that NLP can help them to do something different? Or how should they look at it?
I think I can answer it in a slightly different way. The way we do it is that instead of teaching people from our perspective, we tend to set up the training so that we start from the perspective of the learner. So we start out by basically helping them rediscover themselves. And then from that position, we start to add skills so that it's connected to who they want to be. And that makes a very big difference in how they perceive and also how they anchor and take in the different learning experiences. I would also say in classical schooling, there's a lot of focus on learning information and content, where we are much more into teaching people a process, so a way of doing things in which they can put any kind of content. So if they master the form of new NLP, you will be able to apply it in sales, in leadership, with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends, anywhere where you want to create something with others.
Yes, and it starts with yourself. It starts to how to lead yourself. Can you elaborate a little bit and define maybe what is personal leadership?
Yeah, I would say that when I talk about personal leadership and the way we think about it, it's really about how do you lead yourself as the person you want to be? And then there's the second level, which is really about how can you lead other people? And I often say when I want to be a little funny about it, I say I have given up using the do-be-do principle, and we are much more using the be-do-be-do principle. And you say, well, what do you mean? I say, a lot of people, they lead themselves from this idea that I have to do something to be somebody. So when I have done this class, then I'm okay. Or when I have applied for this job and got it, then I'm okay. So they're really a kind of a hostage of action. And you see this also in a lot of big organizations. People run around busy like hell because they have this idea that the more I do, the more I am. And it just traps people into a shitty life, basically. So what we do when we teach people to lead themselves is that we do this, we call it be-do. So we teach people to be who they truly want to be. And then from that position, we teach people how to select what to be doing, which actually fits who they want to be. And in a way, we set people free to not have to do things because they're already themselves. So they don't have to do things to be okay because they're already okay. And when you start from this position of being yourself, being okay, you have an actual free choice of what to do next. And it tends to lead to actions of higher quality and higher value.
It's very interesting because being who you are, you need to ask the right questions, but it's not an easy question to answer because when you answer that question, you're maybe looking in the wrong place for that answer.
As in, what I typically say is that I ask the question verbally, but the answer is cannot be contained in words. So if I ask you, who are you when you're truly yourself, even if you put 10,000 words to it, it cannot describe everything. It can point to maybe who you are, but again, you are much more than a word. You are also much more than your name. So your name doesn't tell you who you truly are. It just points to you as a person. So what we do when we help people to really understand who they are is that we help them get to the pre-verbal answer, because that's where they get the true sense of who they are. It's in the body more than in the head. The answer is found to that question.
A lot of people they would answer that question by saying, "Well, I have this job and I'm 30 years old and I have a girlfriend and whatever."
Yeah, you're right. Most people, when I ask them, "Who are you?" they tell me what they do.
Yeah.
And
so
again,
do. The other was
be do.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it's about setting people up so that they understand that, wow, I am who I am, and that's okay. So that they become free to choose what to do, so that they don't have to do shit, so that they can become something. Not a normal way of thinking. It's not that it's never seen in history. I think a lot of people have done this through time. I think kids do this very well before they go to school. So yeah.
So we actually have the blueprint when we are born, and then with our system,
we have basically unlearned it.
Yeah.
So what I'm teaching people is something they have mastered.
It's a relearning process.
Yeah. And so I re-embed it in their consciousness so that they can actually get access to it. And you can also say, so when we talk about how you can lead yourself, I think about it on different levels. There's this first position is really about how to understand, to position yourself so that you're truly yourself. And from there, I think often when people want to improve their personal leadership, it's because they have some sense of outcome they want to achieve. They want to, in business, we talk about high performance. So you need to understand what you want to produce or what you want to create. So you need to be able to set a clear, well-formulated outcome target. And there's different models you can use to get to that. So that's the first thing. The next thing you need to consider is, what kind of behavioral actions do you need to take so that you can believe that you can get to your outcome? So that's really on a behavioral level you can have a focus. And then you can move on to the next level, which is really the mental. So what is it that you have to think and how do you need to think so that you will do what you really have to do so that you create the results you want. But we have to go deeper if you want to master this, because if you want to really master your thoughts, you need to be able to lead your feelings and your emotional state. Because it's the emotional state and your feelings which create the space within which you can think. And this is not even enough. We need to go deeper. Because if you want to be able to lead and impact your feelings, you need to lead your physiology, because that's basically creating the emotional state. And there's different things you can do to really impact your physiology so that it creates the space where you have the emotion which leads to the thinking you need to have so that you can do what you have to do, so you end up creating what you want to create. So when you talk about how we work with personal leadership, it's on all these different levels, depending on the situation and the person we're working with.
Yes, because just knowing what outcome you're trying to achieve from a personal perspective, but also in a business context, what is usually driving this decision? Is it something from within, or is it because of the numbers or the budgets or the industry or
So again, here we can talk about external outcomes or outcomes you set for yourself. And again, depending on your situation, you will sometimes get outcome from others. You can have a boss say, wow, I really need to see a 10% increase in the revenue you bring in next year. And then you can say, wow, okay, thank you, boss, I do that. Now it's yours. Then you can start to think about, what is it that I have to do over the next year to believe that I will be able to bring in 10% more? Maybe I should visit some more customers. Maybe I should be able to increase the quality in my meetings so I get bigger conversion. So that's, okay, so what is it I need to think and believe so that I would actually end up doing that? Okay. And then how should I feel about this? What emotional state should I be in when I go and meet my customers so that they actually support that? So now you can, in a way, reverse engineer the whole process for yourself. And again, for me, it starts in the body. That's the whole point. If you don't control your body, you don't control your emotions. And if you don't control your emotions, you don't control your thoughts. If you don't control your thoughts, you don't control your behavior. And if you don't control your behavior, you don't control your outcomes. So you need to master all these levels to really truly lead yourself. And you can do this from two different starting points, from feeling like shit and wanting to get away from it, or feeling great, wanting to achieve more. Most people beat themselves up from the negative and try to, in a way, motivate them from that position. It's a shitty strategy leading to shitty lives. I'm not doing that. I help people working from, again, what's working, so that they're actually able to create real value for themselves and the people around them, and which is sustainable long term, you can say.
It's very interesting because managing my state is something that I've done personally for the last 10 years. Every morning I will have a ritual, and it used to be reading books with my morning coffee, getting up a few hours before I need to be with anybody else than myself. And reading inspirational books from Stephen Covey or Tony Robbins or some of these people. It would give me some of that juice, but it would kind of quickly also wear off. Where in the last few years I've been practicing more yoga and doing breathwork exercises, which is actually changing my physiology to put me in that state where I feel like, okay, now I want to go out there and create stuff. But I think what has been driving that whole inspiration and motivation to do something different was because I've been self-employed. Whereas if I don't run in the right direction, then there is no gold at the end of the rainbow, you know? And then I have to figure out what direction I need to run in now. Whereas a lot of people, they don't ask themselves these questions.
No.
So what can people do to start taking more ownership of their journey instead of trying to have the world around us dictate in which direction we should run?
I think there's a lot of things you can do, and it can be overwhelming. But there are some very basic things which, again, tend to impact your physiology in a positive direction. Okay, first and foremost, make sure that you sleep well. Again, too many people in the Western world have sleep deficit, so they sleep much less than 7 hours a night. And I think for most people need to sleep at least 8 hours a night to wake up well rested, and basically to maintain their energy. So that's one point. Breath work, you mentioned that earlier, also very useful, because the way you're breathing are also impacting your physiology very directly. What you eat have a huge impact. I think sugar is not really a health product. Sugar will give you fast energy, but it will also give you a very significant drop of energy shortly after. So again, normally sugar is not useful. I'm not a dietary expert, so I think also humans are different. So different people react to different food subjects differently. So again, but again, for sure, what you eat have an impact on your physiology. I would also say that knowing some of your own positive signals can be a way of leading yourself into a good state. Having a brisk walk can be a way of influencing your physiology. So being in a good shape is useful. So for me, there's a lot of things that if your physiology is not okay, forget about the rest. Because I think everyone know that if you wake up after too little sleep, you're tired, you need to spend too much energy just basically staying awake, you're not productive. And then all the other tools will not work very effectively. So there are some of these very simple, basic, fundamental things you can do to impact your physiology so that you start your day in a good emotional state.
I want to touch in upon, because I get the fact that if we can create something from within, we will sustain ourselves in a more sustainable way, and we'll sustain our energy levels, but also at some point, at least as an entrepreneur and wanting to actually create services and products and deliver them into the world and have somebody pay for them and enjoy the growth that it gives them. But there are certain elements to introducing new products to the world that is predicated upon someone actually using this for their benefit and wanting to pay for it because it actually solves their problem.
Or bring them something they really want.
Yeah. But what if they don't know?
If they don't know, nothing will happen. So again, here, you can. Again, I'm just saying that not all products are being bought because people have problems.
No.
People buy a lot of things not because they have any problem, but because they want something. People go to Netto and they buy a chicken, not because they have a problem, but because they like chicken.
Yeah.
People, they go out, to bars, discos, not because they have a problem, but because they want a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And actually, if we go into that scene again, if you want to go out and find a partner, maybe it's useful to not have a problem. Maybe it's okay to work from a starting point where wow, I'm okay. And again, I have heard from a lot of people that when they think about their life, the periods where they were single and okay, it was very difficult to stay single. If you go out and want to find a partner because you have a problem being alone, I will guarantee that you will end up with the wrong partner. You will find somebody who likes a person who have problems being alone. And that's not the partner you want. Because when you have them, you're not alone, and now they don't like you because you're not alone. So it doesn't fit.
No.
So I think again here, I really believe in starting from where the problem isn't, and use that as a starting point. Also when you want to supply a service or product to the world.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because for everybody out there, how does that really work? I remember from reading your book that we can create this generalized positive state, you call it DS+. Then this state can be combined with a feeling of being part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And where you can use your unique talents, the greater than self. And from there you can find your intent and stay true to it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, maybe go through this process with us?
The process you're referring to there was developed by Joseph Reggio, my American partner. It's a part of his Mythos Self program. And the basic idea is that he have this first state he called general desired state, which is a position where you are at your best, when you are the way you want to most be in the world. So that's the general desired state. What happens for most people, if they want to really have a significant impact in this world, you cannot do it alone. You are often really dependent on being able to do it with other people. So you want to be a part of a bigger system, because otherwise you will not have a very big impact. So he's defining the second state as greater than self. That's where you are okay, but a part of something bigger than yourself. And when you combine these two states, the state where you are okay and where you are part of a bigger system which is okay, basically in the cross section between these two states, that will give you a sense of directionality, the way you can move, where you respect yourself, but where you also respect the system of which you are part. And when you act in that way, you create a win-win. It's not only good for you, it's not only good for the system, it's good for you and the system. So I see people who go into the world and do what they really like to do because it's good for them. Relatively selfish approach, you can say. That can lead to performance and results short term. But long term, it's not that sustainable because other people don't like selfish people. So that's a dead end. I have also met people who do what they do because they want to serve the greater system, but then they forget themselves. And that's not sustainable either, because maybe they can do this for a short time because they want to help others, but if they lose themselves in the process, they cannot do it long term. So the trick is to find a niche where you can be yourself and being a part of something bigger, which also which allow you to be yourself, but where you can also create value for the bigger system. And when you do that, you're on the right path. That's what creates this trajectory, which will lead you and your life in the right direction.
Okay, I came to think about how do you make sure that you're leading the right you, and I want to elaborate, because through yoga, for example, from my perspective, your ego is running a lot of your life, and you believe that this is you and who you are, and all the possessions that you have, but this is not really you. And you reach a certain point in your life. I felt it in my late 20s, where I get a feeling that the identity that I've built around myself has helped me throughout my life. But at this point, there are some parts of me that I will take further into the next chapter, but some that I need to leave behind. How to make sure that you're leading the right part of yourself?
I think in theory it's very easy to explain. In practice, it's not so easy because most people don't live their own lives. They are living out their parents' life or somebody else's life. Joseph talk about this as everyone have a myth, a story they tell themselves about who they are, and often it's not their own story. So what we do, the process we're doing is that we help people somatically, bodily, to basically reconnect to who they truly are, and from there we teach them how to connect to the story they're using as the story of their life. But when you review that story from being yourself, you can notice, wow, is that actually the story I want? If it is, take it back in and continue. If not, then we teach people how to rewrite their story so that it actually fits who they want to be. And this is deep work. This is not just surface, because most people are not even aware of the story which dictate their lives. It had been put into them long before they realized that was happening.
But also maybe as part of a protective mechanism. What happened in the past, what kind of frozen conditions and traumas have built up in my system? What are your perspectives on, like, I like the combination of actually using tools to get me to the place where I want to go, but through the philosophy of psychotherapy, there's perspectives upon that you have conditions that you need to understand and release before you can, like, release a trauma. How do you see traumatic experience and release of these in the eyes of NLP?
See, in classical psychotherapy, you believe that if you want to release a trauma, you need to go back into it and then release it from within that. And what I see is that there's a big risk in that approach. It often tends to just re-anchor the trauma. So the way we handle traumas is that we basically bring the person to where the trauma isn't, and then from that position, we reposition the trauma in the person. So I think these days there are done quite some study with ecstasy in microdoses of ecstasy, where you microdose people with ecstasy. I think Casper Christensen have shared his experience doing that. So basically, when you microdose ecstasy, you see the client move into this positive mindset, into what we call the excitatory open state. And then from there, you can talk about anything. Because what happens is that if you share a trauma from a negative state, you tend to basically reinstalling and embedding the trauma further. But if you talk about a negative trauma from a positive state, you basically reinstall the memory so that it have a different impact. Because again, you see, the state you are in when you recall a memory will impact how you recall the memory next time. So if you are happy, when you recall a bad memory, it will become more positive. And if you do it that a few times, then there's a big chance that you can basically, imprint the trauma so that it becomes positive, even though it was not positive when it happened. You understand?
I think so.
So instead of going back into the trauma, we look at the trauma from a position where you're okay. And then you will see it. A simple example. Let's say that 3 years ago, you were 1 week on vacation on Bornholm and with some of your friends, and it was raining all week. You could not get out. The kids were crazy, dancing on the walls, and really shitty holiday. Then 3 years later, you are meeting with the same friends, sitting there around the barbecue, drinking red wine, having a nice evening, one of those summer evenings where it's, 22 degrees and it's just nice. And then suddenly you talk about that holiday 3 years ago. And everyone says, wow, that was really cozy. We were sitting indoor playing Ludo all day long. And wow, it was in a way, it really gave us a good space to really get to know each other. And suddenly it's a wonderful holiday because you're sitting there having a good time, and suddenly you forget all the negative aspect of that memory and you reinstall it as a fantastic holiday. And suddenly somebody says, wow, maybe we should go to Bornholm again. Yeah, that could be fantastic. So that's what we are doing. So in a way, we are tricking people to remember the trauma from a position where they're okay, so that they will basically reinstall the trauma in a new way. And I think also the American military did some studies with soldiers coming back with PTSD, where they gave them again ecstasy, and from that position of being in a positive state, they had the person talk about the trauma, and within a few consultations, the person was okay again.
So they could even access, because a lot of the times people can't access the memories of what actually gave them PTSD.
And again, here that can also be true, but again, going down that way, there's also a lot of therapists who install trauma which were never there to begin with. You're creating false memory because they bring people into a negative state, And so, wow, since you are so misery now, something misery must have happened. So when you think back to your early childhood, who abused you?
Yeah.
And suddenly they start to imagine up shitty experiences which were actually never happening to them. And suddenly they install trauma by using this technique. It's a well-known risk in this way of working. So again here, I don't believe. I think it's a beautiful idea about going back and relive trauma and understand the root cause, but it doesn't work.
In the field of psychotherapy, you talk about generational trauma.
Yeah.
That you might have something in your genetic expression that is not yours to begin with.
I think it's a crazy metaphor. I think, but again, it's like, wow, I couldn't find the trauma in my own life. Maybe it's my father. I couldn't find that. Maybe it's my maybe it happened 10,000 years ago. But you know, and then all of us have traumas because in those days we were almost eaten all day by the lions and the saber tigers. So I think if you go down that rabbit hole, you can there's endless of shit you can figure up. So why go there if you know how to start from where the problem isn't, where you can say to yourself, wow, maybe life is not perfect, but I survived. And from a position where you can start to look forward and decide, should I do this or this or that? So I much more want to bring people into a state where they are okay, where they realize that maybe in their past things have not been exactly the way they wanted, but they are okay. And the proof is that they are now sitting here with me, safe and happy and okay. And then from here, we can discuss where do you want to go next? You still have another 30, 40 years.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So how do you guide somebody through this process to find their own path? Because maybe they think they found it, maybe they actually haven't. Is it one coaching session, or can you take us through the process?
I think what I basically do when first, I always start before I start. And by that I say that I do something in the beginning of the session which bring the person into a state where they find themselves to be okay before they recognize it, so that I can basically get the nonverbal cues that tells, which allow me to know what they are communicating outside their own awareness to themselves when they're okay, so that I can basically help them stay okay.
And these nonverbal cues, what are you looking for?
It could be breathing, it could be the eye access, it could be some movements they're doing, muscles they're flexing, which allow them to know that they're okay. And when I have those signals, then I loop them back and then I say, okay, what do you want? And then I'm much more noticing their non-verbal answer than their verbal answer. So I notice, do they look in a specific spot? Do they act and do what they say actually match what they're saying? So let's say that I'm working with a customer and I ask them, what do you want? And then they do it like this. They look up to the right and then they look to the left and then they answer. Then I'm pretty sure that they're not sharing the truth with me, because the truth is there, not there. The truth was the first spot they were looking at. What they shared with me was the second. And then I would go back and say, wow, actually, that was not what I asked you. I asked you about that. What is that? So I help them to access what they truly want, not what they think I would like to hear. So again, if you don't have accuracy, if you cannot read the nonverbal communication, there's a big risk that you help people getting the wrong thing. Because a lot of people have been trained not to answer truthfully, but to answer what they think the other person would like to hear. That's what we have been taught in school, in university, and in a normal workplace. Don't tell the boss what you think. Tell the boss what the boss wants to hear. And then
So that's how you do budgeting.
yeah. So again, so when I do this process, I'm really careful to read people, so that I help them get what they truly want, not what I think they should want. And then when I have that in place, I bring them into the future, into the position 2, 3, 5 years from now when they have got it, and then I help them get basically I give them an experience of already having it. So I build this future memory, and then I bring that information which that contains back to the present, and help them create a plan, an action plan, which actually can bring them in that direction.
But it's almost kind of, I remember this from the personal leadership course, it's almost kind of a guided visualization meditation exercise.
Yeah, I call it hypnosis.
Yeah.
It's basically I help people to see, to visualize, but also to physically experience already having what they want to have, so that it's already embedded in them. Because when people have experienced having had it before they get it, it's difficult to believe that they cannot get it again because they already experienced it. So that's the power of this. So I built this full body virtual reality of already having it, because then in a way the persons tend to believe that this is possible because I have already experienced it. Now I just have to do it again. And then I bring them back to the starting point. I say, okay, so what is the first thing you need to do? So I seldom build a full-scale action plan, because that tends to basically drag the energy out of people. Yeah. I think if they know what the next step is, they know enough.
Yes.
Because when they have taken the first step, they will have new data available to them, and now they can take the next step and the next step and the next step. So that's how I do it.
Yes, because people, they tend to actually look to where they want to go, and they find that, and then the journey there just seems to be too overwhelming, right?
And then I was modeling a very successful sales trainer many years back when I did my own NLP master training. It was Frank Johansson who built a very successful training company. Later they were called Cultivator, one of the biggest training companies in Denmark in those days. And he said that when he started his own Frank Johansson training company, he had this clear vision of the company he wanted to establish. And then he just took the first step. And he said to me during that interview, if he had known all the things he had to do on the way, he would never have started.
No.
Because he hired 3 secretaries, which were working in 3 shifts for 2 months to finish all the training manuals. So he was basically dictating the manuals to them. So he was crazy active, you understand? And if he had realized that before he started, he would never have done it.
No.
So, but he knew the first step and the second step, and he took and then the process basically evolved step by step as he moved closer and closer. And for him, it was 1st of September, because that was where the training season started in those days. So he wanted to have his program and his catalog and everything ready for that date.
So do you do a lot of, one-on-one coaching with leaders, for example, throughout time, where you help them actually get back to those first steps to follow them on that path? Or
I do it with individual managers, but we also do it in our training programs. We help the participants to really understand that they cannot do everything at once. They need to focus on what is the next step. And also, again, for instance, when we coach salespeople in doing pipeline management and account management, it's also about basic understanding, okay, how far are we with this project? What's the status? Where do we want to be in 1 year? What is the next thing we have to do with this account to move them in the right direction? And then do that. And after they have done the first step, now we have new data available, which will allow us to really understand what will be the right next step to take. So instead of wanting to make a complete action plan, I've seen this in so many companies. They do these big strategic plans, and I have done it myself. And none of those plans have ever been put into reality, because what happens is that I have done it myself. We spent 2-3 months developing this big strategic plan for the department I was in, and we presented the plan. Everybody applauded, and then the day after, something happened in the market, and then we basically had to redo the whole plan. But what we luckily did was that we just forgot about it, and then we did what actually made sense. I think this is why a lot of these strategy plans never become reality. They're too detailed in the steps.
And companies don't have flexibility because they do their budgets, and then a cool opportunity comes up.
Yeah.
But we don't have it in the budgets, and then
Yeah. No, so I'm really a strong advocate for understanding where are we. I'm a strong advocate of understanding what is it that we are aiming for, and why do we want that, and how do we know that we have reached that. And then I'm a very strong advocate for, okay, so what is that we do the next week?
Yes.
And then it's like, I think also this is getting more and more normal in project management with tools like Scrum and Agile approach and so on. They're very, very powerful tools. Same idea.
Yeah. So now we're actually going a little bit more into organizational development, which is for the next episode.
I know.
But I have it in my notes. I remember Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which is a legendary masterpiece, and he made years ago. But he says in this book, and you refers to it in your book, Do What You Do Best, that all humans have this underlying myth or story.
Yeah.
And that some people will discover it and others will never find it. And instead, they'll spend their lives living other people's myths.
Yeah.
And then you talk about these small signals from our subconscious that Joseph Campbell refers to as calls.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't always listen to these calls.
Yeah.
How does these calls manifest? What is a call, as Joseph Campbell refers to here? What is the signal that you should look for?
I think I think almost everyone get those small calls, and you often get them, when you're on the sofa Sunday afternoon, relaxing, thinking about the next week, and no, but if I could do this, but then you say, okay, no, I need to get a little more experience, and then I can do it. Or if I have a savings of 200,000, then I can do it. And now we start to make excuses for not doing what we want to do, because we think that next year is a better time to do. But then next year, again, there are excuses. So I think I have never met a person who don't know these signals. I have met a lot of persons who are really, really good at ignoring their own signals. So they get the call, and what Joseph Campbell says is that most people, they only react when the crisis is so big that they cannot not act upon it. So some people, they need to be almost dead by cancer to act on their call.
And that's again the burning platform.
Yeah. So some people need that kick to get started. I would say that what we do in Accuracy World is that instead of people having to wait for that crisis, we teach them to start from a positive starting point, and where we basically help them get the belief that, wow, there's actually a time and a place for me in this world as who I am when I'm truly myself. And then we basically help people believe that that's true, so that they start to take action also before the crisis. So they don't need the burning platform, but we much more work from this burning desire strategy.
And it's kind of like, it sounds a little bit like going with your gut feeling.
It's for sure, it's an enlightened gut feeling. So it's not just a feeling, it's a feeling combined with some brain. So it's
feeling and intention.
Yeah. It's not just if you feel something is right. But again, it's a good starting point to have this feeling that there's something you want. Then it's okay to add some thoughts and some consciousness to it as well. So I think again, I'm not a strong believer in this. If you can dream it, you can do it. I think it's too superficial. I think it's too new age for my taste. But I would say if you cannot dream it, for sure you will never do it.
It's very interesting because to me you are a very pragmatic man, but at the same time, a lot of the different teachings and the philosophy and the stories you tell me around NLP, it's not new. I've heard it before, but I've dived into yoga and spiritual teachings, and I can see that there is a silver lining somewhere. But I really like the fact that your take on is specific, is relevant, it's simple, and it's put into context of sales and business, which is maybe one of the most concrete elements of growth. And that makes a lot of difference, and I think also why you're actually having success with implementing this in organizational settings.
It's for me again, a lot of people are being drawn into this kind of work because they want to be happy.
Yeah.
This happy training in 2 days, and for me, this have never been about happy.
No.
For me, this work is about doing something which is worthwhile doing, even if you have to sweat, even if it doesn't feel great. I want people to be so okay that they don't need to be happy. I think a lot of people who need to be happy is because they want to be distracted away from a shitty life, not living their own life. So it's like taking a painkiller. Yeah. So because if I'm happy, then I can forget that what I'm doing is actually not what I want to do. I want people to be so okay that they can decide to do something which is actually worthwhile doing, so that they don't have to be happy. And what often happens is that happiness comes as a byproduct, because if you live a life where you actually do something worth doing, even though it's not easy, even though it doesn't demand an effort, you will get more moments of happiness, of true happiness, real happiness. No, so again here, I don't do happy. I help people to create real, sustainable, valuable results for themselves and the people around them, so that they can end up with a life where they can look back and say, wow, I actually had a positive impact for myself, my family, and the society of which I'm a part. It was not an easy life. It was not a comfortable life always, but it was a life worth living.
That's really nice. It resonates. And I think a lot of people need to hear this also. We have a culture of in Denmark, we call it curling children.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that.
So what's very interesting, and we're running a little bit out of time here, but we have a third episode coming up where we will take a lot of these tools and techniques from a personal perspective, how to lead yourself, because that's the starting point before you can actually start to lead others.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into it, but maybe we can give it a little bit of a introduction to the power of questions, to knowing who am I really, answering questions of, I remember 3 questions that you asked us the first day on the personal leadership program was, what works, where do I want to go, and what do I need to get there? How do you help people answer these questions? Can you give us a little bit of an introduction to that?
Again here, it's a big question because it's relatively complex. I do it by not only listening to what they're saying, but also paying attention to how they non-verbally answer that question. Because again, the non-verbal, the first answer, as I call it, often carry much more truth than the verbal. So I help people to actually hear and see what they are communicating outside their awareness. And then I bring it into their awareness so that they can actually act upon what's in fact true for them. That's what I'm doing. And I don't know if it's not easy to explain with words. It's something you have to see and experience if you really want to get what I'm talking about.
Okay, so if you had to, what would you do to help somebody transform their own life in 6 months so they feel that they can actually see real change?
I would say it doesn't take, I think the transformation can happen in less than an hour. To make the transformation stick, maybe you need a lifetime. I think I will still remember that Joseph talked about a workshop he did in London back in the late 90s, where there was a David attending, and Joseph did a demo with him where he basically taught him to move into the position where he was truly himself in his GTS, as we talked about earlier in this episode. And he noticed that to go there, he just needed to do this with his back and look up. And when he was like this, he was truly himself, basically flexing here. And then I think he got it. He said, "What? So I just have to do this?" Yeah. Well, because when you do this, yeah, then I'm okay and I'm focusing on what I want. Okay, good. So for him, it took less than 10 minutes. For most people, it's so easy that they cannot allow it to be true, because now they have spent 20 years not being able to uncover the riddle, so to say. So doing it in less than 10 minutes, that's too overwhelming for them. So they need to fuck up their life and fix it, fuck up their life and fix it. It needs to take 3 years. You understand?
That's our conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So I think again, so bringing people to where they're actually themselves is, I do it normally with most people in less than 3 days. But for people to be able to stay and maintain, that takes practice. It takes that you basically teach yourself to do it, so that you need to install some new habits, some new pattern, which can override the old ones. And that can take some time. For some people, a few months. For some people, a few years. For me, it took me around 3 years to, in a way, reprogram myself from having this problem mindset to this more possibility mindset.
And this is actually what you help organizations and individuals do, and we'll talk much about that in the third episode.
Yeah.
Because in that third and final episode, we'll take it from a personal perspective to how we can grow and lead ourselves to actually figure out how we can lead others, and what Stephen Covey would say, from independence to interdependence, we can actually create real lasting change.
Yeah.
But to give people something to chew on when they leave today would be maybe some actions that you could take to find a way to get closer to yourself, to figure out what that starting point really is. Do you have any ideas or perspectives that they can leave with?
I have a few things which could be an exercise you can do by yourself at home. You can think back in your life, in your career, and then find 3 to 5 situations where you actually found that you were doing something you enjoyed doing. And then describe that for yourself. Because you will start to see that there are some patterns between these 3 to 5. There's something which are similar to these experiences, which will give you some insight about who you are when you're really at your best. The other thing you can do is to think about your personal strengths. So Marcus Buckingham talk about your true personal strengths are things you are good at and give you energy when you apply it. So make a list of things you are really good at and which you enjoy doing. That can also be a gateway into this space where you're truly yourself. Because typically when people apply their strengths, it's aligned with who they truly are. Not just what they're good at, because some people are good at things which are not really giving them energy and strength. They're just good at it. It's really the combination of things which you're good at and also energize you. That can also be a doorway to find the space where you have really a sense of who you are when you're truly yourself.
Very interesting and inspiring. And hopefully for everybody back home listening or watching, this is kind of a detective work. You need to begin to figure out who you actually are. Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places. But the answers are within if you can...
If you know where and how to look. Yeah.
And on that note, thank you so much, Henrik, for sharing this with us. Hopefully that everybody listening out there has been inspired to get to know themselves a little bit better, to find their true intent. So on that note, thank you, Henrik, for inviting us in. I can see the fire is all done. So we will say goodbye to everyone out there as well. And thank you for tuning in. And hopefully you were inspired. My name is Frederick. This is Henrik. Thank you for watching.